Now, as a business owner, taking your corporate background, how do you integrate that into, the speaking world?
I love that question, actually. So I have over 10 years in business operations. And what I learned through that work experience, and I still do have some side contracts, but it's a referral only component. My biggest takeaway from that work experience is my ability to work efficiently. When you're talking operations, it's always about reducing lead time. How long does it take for you to do something? And is this truly the needle mover, right? Is this really the thing? Are you doing only what needs to be done, or are you doing a bunch of nonsense that feels like you're doing the work, but it's really not the actual work that needs to be done? So what I've done is I've leveraged that into my coaching program to where when I'm working with speakers, it's not about spending months and years with me to get you to the stage. There's a more efficient way to get you to the stage. And so by obviously taking the time to really work the program, and I'm always refining it based on feedback and more experience, I really have my clients focus on only what's needed. I'm not trying to bring in a bunch of fluff or extra stuff to make it seem like the program is bigger or better than it is. I just want you focusing on these things because the main takeaway is your signature talk. I want you to walk away with a complete practiced signature talk so you feel good about whatever stage you're invited to. So I would say operational excellence and efficiency plugged into my program gets people to the stage faster.
Mm. And what made you decide to work on specifically the signature talk as like almost what catapults them to get onto stages?
Okay, let's see. So when I look at a person's desire to be on stage, and I look at the idea that person has to be on stage. So you've got the outcome and the goal, and then you have the person and the idea. I sat back and I was like, what's the gap? What stands between this person and their idea and feeling good about getting on stage or booking a gig? And oftentimes it's the talk. That's the medium, the vehicle, the thing that when you have it, not only are you really clear in who you are, who you're targeting, and what your message is, you're going to know exactly what audience is a perfect fit for you.
Mm.
And a combination of you doing your own outreach as well as getting yourself centered and aligned with what it is that you're supposed to be speaking on and who you're speaking to. I don't know, to me, it's the way. When you have it, like, for example, I've worked with some clients and I'm always like, okay, are you wanting to do a talk that sells or a talk that inspires? Because it's two different vehicles, but both are available to you. And often, as we're discovering their speaker identity and getting clear on more about who they are, who they serve, what they're speaking on, we determine pretty quickly, are you here to inspire or you want to learn how to sell? And that changes the trajectory of the stage goal.
Yeah.
It looks different. So yeah.
Is there one way that you feel works better or with nope, it's just whatever?
Well, it's what's on that person's heart at the time.
Got
I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of them do need help with selling, but they're not aware of selling from stage and what that actually means. They're not aware of how to structure the talk in such a way that actually sells. And then there's that call to action, right? How do you integrate the right call to action versus if you were invited to do a TED Talk or you got accepted to do a TED Talk? That's a completely different style presentation. You're not allowed to sell from stage on TED.
Right.
You're there to give, inform, and it's all about ideas worth sharing. So it's just a totally different vehicle. And some people need to sell but want to be on TED. There's like that.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, it all still represents your brand.
Right.
And it's all about having the foundational elements in place to where regardless of the stage you know how to tweak it to that audience and structure the style to accommodate the setting. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So when you're accommodating the setting, a huge part of it is, communication. And I feel like that can be very problematic for some people because they don't always know how to communicate their ideas.
Mhm.
When they are working in your program, what are some tactics or exercises you use to get them to tap into their communication style and better informing their audience?
Okay. So like in the beginning or like the first part of the program, it's really all about getting clear on you. And there are a variety of frameworks. I call them mini puzzles that I have to put my clients through. It's like a little bit of a mental exercise to where you're using some of the same language, but you're looking at it from a variety of perspectives to the point where you're like, okay, it locks in. I know who I am, who I'm serving, what it is that I do. Once we get all of that stuff locked in, then we can go deeper into the actual talk itself. But until that upfront clarity is in place, it's really, I wouldn't recommend creating a talk, just from nowhere. And if I'm working with an entrepreneur, why did you get started? Why are you in this kind of business? Just kind of like you're asking me these questions, right? Where did it come from? And when we can go back to that original motive, I can usually find what needs to be found to where the person's like, oh, that's what I do. It's really finding those epiphanies first, then they can proceed. So there's formulas that I use as exercises.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to share this with all of you because Robyn is awesome. I met her at a conference day and she literally could see right through me. And that's what, and in a good way. I mean this wholeheartedly. Like she saw holistically, like what was kind of holding me back, what my troubles were at the time. And, for all of you, I'm like a new mom. And so it can be challenging because you have all these different perspectives of like where I should be or how I should be doing something. And she's like, well, what's going to light you up? What are the things that I can already tell there's a course in you? So just hearing that, like she already saw it. So if you're thinking of, maybe you're unsure about speaking or confused on your message, like she can really help you tap into what you need holistically. It's a big talent that you have, and I just want people to know that about you too. So
Well, you inspired me at that table, no, it was the masterminds.
mhm,
And what I liked is you were very open about where you're at. You're on your journey to being a mom, and this is your first child, right?
yeah,
And I know that, I mean, I'm not personally a mother, so nor do I have any on the way. I just know that that's a big change and it affects your business life, it affects everything. And how could you lean into that more without
mhm,
it being, without it going against the entrepreneur inside of you? And
totally,
yeah, that was a really nice experience at that event. We were
yeah.
all very open and
We had a good table.
we
It's
did.
always nice when you're sitting with very like-minded people. It just makes such a difference. But, like it's great because you and I both come from that corporate background and being able to understand that, things need to still have some organization and also you have to have your systems in order
Yeah.
to sell so that you can have like a bigger stage, a bigger platform. What are some things though that corporate professionals now can do to start building their own personal brand with maybe speaking or just, starting to talk more about themselves?
Tell stories. Integrate story into the work that you do. It doesn't always have to be this like hard left brain, fact driven, logical place that we come from all the time. In fact, I'm working with a lady right now in a TED talk, and her topic is the currency of story in the workplace. And so I'm not pulling this from nowhere. I believe that if you're giving a presentation and you've actually given maybe a little bit more time towards practice, and you're like, in order for me to drive this point, I'm just going to tell a funny story. And I'm going to let people have a little taste of me every now and then, so it's not so disconnected from the truth of who we are. And I think especially in managerial or leadership roles, I think it would be really good for the company culture to bring in a little bit of a personal touch, because there's the work, right? You're all bought into this big company vision in a corporation. You're abiding by the imperatives, the values, these things are in place for you. So you didn't actually get to create them in corporate. You just bought into them. And if you want to add in a little flavor of you, then the best way to go about doing that is to just interlace it into the work that you're already doing. So if you're giving a presentation and it's on reporting, you can every now and then, if you feel like the audience is starting to get tired or lacking engagement, just bring in a story or a really strong analogy or something that's going to captivate the imagination of your listeners, because that's where your creative side comes out just a little bit. And it just brings people together when you get into story. And I'm not talking about some like long, drawn out, painful story. I'm talking about like a really quick story that just drives your point. Like, you guys, the other day I was just doing this thing and blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, what? That happened to me too. And it just becomes a point of relation or
Mhm.
connection.
Totally.
I would highly suggest that.